The trading week of July 27th is here, and one thing is certain. The stakes are high. We're talking about a week where over $7.49 billion in market cap will be put to the test. The question on everyone's mind is, what will happen when the giants of the industry step up to the plate? This week, we're expecting earnings from some of the biggest players in the game, with one moment in particular that will decide the fate of the week. Will it be a home run or a strikeout? The tension is building, and all eyes are on the calendar, waiting for that one moment that decides the week. What will it bring? Welcome to the week ahead, where geopolitics is taking center stage and the market mood is, to say the least, complex. Just as it seemed the world was on the brink of another major conflict, Trump called off bombing, and Iran signaled it would halt strikes, a delicate détente at best. But don't think for a second that this means the region is out of the woods. With Houthi attacks on Saudi Red Sea oil sites and the Israeli strike killing a top Hamas security official in Gaza, the embers are still very much alive. And let's not forget the Caspian Sea, where a Ukrainian attack on an Iranian vessel has raised more than a few eyebrows. So, the question on everyone's mind, and the one that will likely dictate market movements this week, is, can this fragile peace hold? The stakes are high, with the potential for a broader conflict hanging precariously in the balance. And while it's hard to put a price on peace, the cost of war is all too real. Just ask the oil markets, where prices have been seesawing in recent weeks. But amidst all the chaos, there's a growing conversation about how to distribute the wealth generated by AI to all Americans, a potential $7.49 billion windfall that could be a game-changer for the economy. Yet, with so many variables at play, it's difficult to predict which way the markets will move. One thing's for sure, though, the next few days will be critical in determining the trajectory of global events. So, as we head into the week, the big question remains, will diplomacy prevail or will tensions escalate? The answer, much like the markets themselves, remains uncertain. As the mainland crossing between Kuwait and Iraq reopens and Romania shoots down yet another Russian drone, it's clear that the world is a complex, interconnected web, and the ripples from one event can have far-reaching consequences. So, buckle up because this week is shaping up to be a wild ride. Tuesday's earnings are looking like a real mixed bag, folks. Let's start with the healthcare sector, where Centene Corp is set to report before the open. With estimated revenue of around $48.1 billion and EPS of $1.10, the one thing to watch here is how their expansion into new markets is paying off. Can they keep that top line growing? Meanwhile, in the world of autos, Ford Motor Co. will give us a glimpse into the state of the industry after the close, with expected revenue of $46.7 billion and EPS of 36 cents. The big question for Ford, will their push into electric vehicles be enough to offset declining traditional sales? Boeing Co., reporting before the open, is a different story altogether. With estimated revenue of $24.9 billion and a projected loss per share of 32 cents, all eyes will be on their 737 MAX recovery timeline. Can they get production back on track? Last but not least, Bunge Global SA is set to report before the open, with expected revenue of $23.5 billion and EPS of $2. The key thing to watch here is how they're navigating the wild world of commodity prices. Will they be able to maintain those profit margins? Wednesday's earnings are shaping up to be a real showdown, with three heavy hitters stepping up to the plate. Let's start with Microsoft Corp., the tech titan that's expected to rake in a cool $89.4 billion in revenue, with earnings per share estimated at $4.33. But can they meet those lofty expectations? The one thing to watch here is whether their cloud business can keep driving growth. Then, of course, there's Meta Platforms Inc., the social media giant that's looking to prove it still got it, with estimated revenue of $61.4 billion and earnings per share of $7.38. The big question is, can they finally get their ad revenue back on track? And don't sleep on Humana Inc., the healthcare company that's set to report before the open, with estimated revenue of $41 billion and earnings per share of $7.29. What you want to watch here is how their Medicare business is performing. With EPS estimates at $7.29 for Humana and $4.33 for Microsoft and $7.38 for Meta, will these companies be able to live up to the hype? That's what we'll be watching on Wednesday, as these three companies take center stage. Thursday's earnings bonanza is all about the heavy hitters. Amazon.com Inc. is set to reveal its latest numbers after the close, and with revenue estimated at $200.3 billion, the big question is whether the e-commerce giant can keep its growth momentum going, especially with EPS expected to come in around $1.86. Can they keep up the pace? Meanwhile, Apple Inc. will also report after the close, with all eyes on whether they can hit that $110.7 billion revenue mark and an EPS of $1.93. The real test will be how their services segment performs. On the flip side, Cigna Group kicks off the day before the open, and with a hefty revenue estimate of $72.4 billion and EPS of $7.83, the one thing to watch is how their medical membership numbers are looking. And last but certainly not least, Valero Energy Corp reports before the open, with a revenue estimate of $38.7 billion and a whopping EPS estimate of $10.27. The key will be their refining margins and whether they can maintain that impressive profitability. As these giants take the stage, one thing's for sure: Thursday's earnings will be anything but dull. And so we come to the final act of this earnings season, with Chevron Corp taking the stage on Friday. The energy giant is expected to weigh in with a whopping $63.1 billion in revenue and a tidy $5.38 in earnings per share. Not bad for a company that's been navigating the choppy waters of global energy markets. But let's be real. The one thing to watch here is how Chevron plans to balance its bottom line with the increasing pressure to invest in cleaner energy sources. Can the company keep its profit machine humming while also keeping up with the green crowd? It's a delicate dance, and one that could have major implications for the sector as a whole. As we await Chevron's pre-market report, one thing is certain: the energy landscape is shifting, and companies like Chevron will need to adapt quickly to stay ahead of the curve. The question on everyone's mind is, will they be able to pull it off? With a revenue estimate of $63.1 billion, the stakes are high, and the margin for error is low. Chevron's got a tough act to follow, but if anyone can do it, they can. This week, the market's biggest names take center stage, with Amazon.com Inc., Apple Inc., and Microsoft Corp. all reporting. But what does it mean? For the bulls, a strong showing from these tech giants could be just the boost the market needs. Consider this: if Amazon.com Inc. can top $7.49 in earnings per share, it'll be a major vote of confidence in the sector. And with Apple Inc.'s EPS expected to come in around $1.89, a beat could send shockwaves through the market. But the bears are growling, too. They'll be watching closely to see if these companies can actually deliver on their promises. A miss from any of these household names could send investors running for cover. And let's not forget the other big players reporting this week: Chevron Corp., with its massive $9.95 billion in quarterly revenues, and Meta Platforms Inc., which is expected to post $1.83 in earnings per share. These companies have a lot to prove, especially with the market's current focus on inflation and interest rates. Then there's the healthcare sector, with Cigna Group, Centene Corp., and Humana Inc. all set to report. If they can show they're weathering the storm, it could be a much-needed shot in the arm for the market. But the real risk this week is that these companies won't be able to live up to expectations. If Ford Motor Co's 62-cent earnings per share isn't enough to impress, or if Boeing Co.'s latest numbers don't show significant improvement, it could be a long week for investors. And with Valero Energy Corp. And Bunge Global SA also reporting, the stakes are high. So, what's the verdict? Can these market giants deliver, or will they disappoint? One thing's for sure, this week will be a wild ride. Wednesday at 4 p.m., we'll get our first glimpse of the action when some of these companies start reporting. By the end of the week, we'll know if the bulls or bears are in charge. So, what's the moment that'll make or break this week? It all comes down to Thursday, after the closing bell, when Amazon.com spills the beans on its earnings. And let's be honest, this is more than just another report card. It's a gauge of consumer spending, a snapshot of the economy, and a potential market mover. With stakes this high, can Amazon deliver? The answer, much like the company's fortunes, hangs precariously in the balance. That's a wrap. 3 big-ticket items to keep an eye on this week: Amazon's cloud growth, Apple's iPhone sales, and Chevron's energy outlook. Will they live up to the hype? This is not financial advice, folks, just the lowdown. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, subscribe for our daily shorts, and we'll keep you posted on the latest from Microsoft to Meta and all the players in between.